Hi there, welcome to Nonsense Whisky. My name's VinPF, and on today's episode we're going to be completing my little journey into the Jameson small pack that I picked up when I was in Dublin Airport a couple of years ago. This little 4-pack, although it excluded the IPA edition, it had the standard Jamesons, the Black Barrel, the Cask Stout, and finally the Crested. I haven't really picked a good order of those, I just sort of did them as I fancied them. This is the last one, and this is the Jameson Crested, much requested by you guys. So hopefully you enjoy this video and my little take on this little sample here. So as I said, I picked this up in the airport. It's a great place to pick up any kind of whiskey, to be honest, but something I like to do when I'm in places that I don't go to very often, like Dublin, haven't been there very often over the last decade or so, is to pick up a little sample pack, because then I get a nice breadth of content, if you like, a nice little way of looking at the local distilleries or whatever, and I tend to pick up stuff like this. Maybe I'll get a full bottle next time I'm over there, we will see. This one here is a little bit different to the standard Jamesons. If you've seen my previous videos on those, you'll know that I kind of like the standard Jameson in a pinch. There's nothing wrong with it really, it's very cheap and quite flavourful and easy to drink. The Black Barrel I was keen on, but I thought it was just a little bit too expensive and not my favourite in the range. The Cask Stout edition is something that I really do like. I think it's great bang for the buck. It's about £25 in the UK and is just a pretty good whiskey. I haven't covered the IPA version of Cask, and to be honest with you, I don't think I will unless I get the opportunity to try a sample of it, like in this sort of situation. I don't think I'm going to buy a bottle of it because I've tried it before. I don't really like it. It's okay to drink, but for me, I actually wish it tasted a little bit more of the IPA. That's just my opinion. So maybe you'll see it one day, maybe you won't. It's one of those things. I don't have it in the queue. We'll see. So now we have the Crested. It's fairly cheap as well. It's 40% whiskey, just like the rest of them are. There are a couple of special edition Jamesons that are a little bit more, but for the core range, 40%. This one goes for about £25 to £30 in the UK, depending on where you're shopping. So it's a pretty good price, all in all. It's of course added colour, probably chill filtered, that sort of thing. But this one here is a little bit different to the standard Jamesons because there's supposed to be a higher proportion of pot still whiskey versus grain whiskey. They don't say pot still malt whiskey because there's a little bit, I'm not sure again of the proportions, but there's a little bit of what they call green barley in there. That's unmalted barley, something that the Irish like to do. They also triple distill. This is all triple distilled. And of course, once that liquid is mixed together, it's aged in mostly sherry casks, ex-sherry casks, with a high proportion of those versus the ex-bourbon casks. We don't know the proportions again, but we're given to believe it might be something around the 60-40. Don't know for sure. Crested, the name, is a little bit of a hark back to the 60s, 1960s, where Jamesons decided they were going to release under their own label. At the time, most whiskey was produced to sell to bonders for them to bottle themselves. But Jamesons heard that they were watering that whiskey down even further and therefore obviously subjecting it to a lesser quality, and decided they were going to compete with their own market to increase the quality essentially, or at least retain the quality is probably a better way of saying that. That's really where the name comes from. It used to be called the Crested 10, a little bit confusing because it definitely wasn't a 10-year-old. Now it's just called the Crested, available internationally. You probably know what this is. Let's get into the glass and see what we've got. Okay then, on the nose. Now, the first thing to note about this is it's super light. If you were going to drink this, I definitely would not suggest drinking it after almost anything else that's of a strong flavour, even if it's extreme sherry or peat or whatever. You're not going to get anything off this. But for a standalone drink, for an easy sipper, this is probably going to be your go-to. First drink of the night, that sort of thing. Very light. Now, I know there's a higher proportion of sherry in this, but if I didn't know that, I'd be struggling to pick those sherry notes out of it. They're there. I think they're there because I know they're there, but they're in the back somewhere. For me, I'm getting a high proportion of kind of apples, orchardy kind of things. It's almost like a space ID nose to it, but it's got a nice nose. I'm enjoying it. It's just extremely light. That's the thing you have to remember about this. Let's try on the palate. So again, first impression, the very first split second, it's extremely thin. There's not much going on initially. Give it a second or two, and the flavours increase. You get these extra vanillas coming out of it. There are some hints at the back of kind of sherry notes, the dried fruits, that sort of thing. What really gives this an extra edge is this really bold, peppery spiciness that comes out of the back end and retains itself all the way to the back end of the finish, which I would say is about medium. Not long, it's medium-ish. It's a tidy dram for sure. It's a tidy dram. And it's a good thing to talk about because it's cheap enough to be a regular sipper. In comparison to some of the other stuff that I've tried recently, and probably to what you've got in your cabinet, it's not going to compete with many of those, I have to say. Maybe on the Irish scale, if we did a Jameson off, I'm not sure where they would sit. Personally, I still think the stout is my favourite of the little core range that I've tried. I would be more than happy to drink this on a regular basis. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just not really the bold flavours that I'm after in my whiskey at the moment. I like kind of cask strength stuff at the moment, and this doesn't really fit the bill for that. But like I said, for the price versus the bang for the buck that you're getting on this, you can't really go far wrong, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with having a bottle of this on your shelf for the occasion when you fancy it.